In this video module, you will examine the rubric used to score the Grade 9 cornerstone task and understand how to score the task. First, it is important to note that the cornerstone task is meant to be a formative assessment and not a summative assessment. Formative assessment is a range of formal and informal assessments conducted by teachers during the learning process in order to modify teaching and learning activities to improve student achievement. For our purposes, the cornerstone task is a more formal, formative assessment that is administered and scored to determine the student mastery of the transfer goal. For the 9th grade cornerstone task, the students are asked to demonstrate mastery of transfer goal number 1, formulate investigations using multiple sources of information to address a question, form an opinion, or solve a problem. As teachers, you don't necessarily have to assign a grade in the gradebook for this formative assessment, but you will need to use the rubric to assign students a score. These scores will help guide your instruction and give you an idea of whether or not students have mastered the transfer goal or if reteaching will become necessary. While the cornerstone task rubric is written using some advanced language, it is possible for all students to understand the rubric and be successful on the task according to the requirements of the rubric. The cornerstone rubric is accessible from Module 2B, The Road to World War II and the Roots to Cold War. While understanding the rubric, you should first understand that no one is expecting all or even any students to exceed expectations in every single category. Ideally, your students should aim for this category, but most students will complete the task in the meets or approaches expectations area. The transfer goal is the first assessed aspect of the rubric. You should score the student's final product on the transfer goal last, because ideally, wherever they fall in the other aspects of the rubric will give you a pretty good idea of how well they have mastered the transfer goal. For example, if the student approaches expectations in all other aspects of the rubric, then they are approaching mastery on the transfer goal. When you explain this rubric to students, which you should upon introducing the task, you may want to draw attention to the bold words. These bold words are clues for the students on what they need to do to meet those expectations on the rubric. For your more struggling learners, you may also want to work with the rubric more in depth by coming up with some additional, more student-friendly language to help them. Let's examine the standard D3.6.8.2, which focuses on the student's ability to source the documents. The meets expectations states that the student recognizes and is generally able to accurately provide evidence to support their knowledge for all of the following criteria: credibility and bias of the source, the contradictions of the sources, the historical context of the source. It is important to point out to your students that they must reference the sources in their explanation of the task. They should explain why they feel the source is credible and supports their viewpoint. This could be explained to students that they need to just back up their sources and state why they feel the information is valid. Once you and your students understand the rubric, you may need additional information about how to score the task using the rubric. Student samples have been collected and are accessible on page 2 of the Teacher Resource Guide found in Module 2B, The Road to World War II and the Cold War. The samples, referred to also as student exemplars, demonstrate how different examples connect to different standards of the rubric. If you have any additional questions about understanding and or scoring the 9th grade cornerstone task, you should contact your content specialist.